Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Short Ball Podcast for another week, a huge week. New South Wales Cup just finished its first round. Jersey Flag, Queensland Cup, still got all the junior rep competitions going on at the moment, so there is a lot to talk about this week, and we won't waste any time getting into it with our moments of the week for round 5 of junior reps. Number 1, Bulldogs clutch finish. Riley Schaefer came up with a intercept late in the game to finish it. Frank Coro also had a key play late, scoring a try to take the lead for the Bulldogs in that game against the Warriors. We will talk about that when we get to our Harold Matthews. The Bears' late lift against the Raiders. Leon Burns, Lachlan Hales came up with some huge plays late in the game to come back from behind against the Raiders in SG Ball, and that claimed the Bears their second win in the competition. Coffee Brookfield in Tasha Gow came up with 2 late tries for the Sharks against her former side in the Illawarra Steelers. That ended up winning them the game in the end there. I think it was 18-14. And then Christian Tupel Moores, he had a game winner as well against the Steelers as well. 22-18, they won that game. We'll obviously talk about that a little bit later. And then the Melbourne Storm claimed their first win in Harold Matthews as well with an awesome try in the end, a little chip over the top, regathered and kicked out, passed out to the wing where there was a try scored there to win the game. So we'll get into our performances, and I've got a huge list of them there. Last week it was just Harold Matthews and SG Ball. Now I'm going Harold Matthews, SG Ball, Flag, Cup, and Cyril Connell as well. So I've got 6 different performances there to talk about. We'll start off with Charlie Webb's double against the Sharks. He was my Harold Matthews player of the week this week. In attack, he just lit them up. His running game was dangerous, was at its absolute best. His first try was just electric. He was sort of the difference on that side of the ball for the Roosters in that game and what ended up being a tight affair against the Sharks. And then just defensively, he's one very underrated in defence. The shots that he comes up with, he hits and sticks in contact. He goes after the opposite back rower all the time. I really like what he does on the defensive side of the ball, Charlie Webb. His kicking game's also very good. He and Sam Large have formed a very good combination for that Roosters side so far this season. And he had his best game so far on the weekend against the Sharks, and he carved up with that 2-try performance there. Then Dane Jennings as well, another one that both sides of the ball had a huge impact on the game. He came up with a lot of big plays defensively, but he also had 2 tries. He had a try assist as well. I think he had 14 points as well because he was doing the goal kicking later on in the game. But yeah, for Dane Jennings there, he can come up with a lot of really big highlight reels, but in this game I thought he did so many little things really well. Defensively was the part I was most impressed with because he's had his sort of moments defensively. He's had really good games. He also had some pretty poor games that I've seen as well. But this was the all-round package, sort of the realisation of what Dane Jennings can be as a player this week, I thought. Because, the highlights reels have always looked insane. He's always produced some really top-tier performances from time to time. I think he's been super consistent this year. I think he's been the best centre in the SG Ball competition. And this performance against Manly was by far his best and probably the best outside back performance we've seen so far this year. The 2 tries were nice. They weren't, his standout, flashy highlights, real plays. They were just good, solid tries. One of them was sort of wide open. It was just a run to the line. The other one had a little bit more touch of class to it. But just overall, his impact on that game from the centre position was really large. And, his centre partner in Dean Tower had an awesome game as well. But yeah, he outshone him, and he was the best on ground for mine in that performance. He was the best performance in SG Ball on the weekend as well. Jersey Flag, Malachi Smith came up with an unreal performance playing lock. He was a Knights hooker coming through the grades. He was playing SG Ball up there. Harold Matthews' system as well. I believe he was still at the Knights. And then, he moved down to Raiders last year, I believe. Still playing Jersey Flag. I think he'd be top age of Jersey Flag now, but he came up with an incredible workman performance. in the Raiders game, I believe, against Manly. That was 38-30 that game full time. And he had, how about this for a stat line? He had 44 tackles, 193 run meters. He scored 2 tries. The first try was just a follow up from dummy half, but I think the second try sort of epitomised the effort that he put into this game. He was just supporting back through the middle off of either a Luke Cannon or a Braden Darmody break. One of those two went through, and Malachi Smith was supporting back through the middle and scored his second try, which sort of kicked the Raiders away. I think it was 26-24 at the time, and then he scored to make it 30-24, or it might have been 24 all. But yeah, he had an unreal performance, Malachi Smith, in that game against Manly in Jersey Flegg. In New South Wales Cup and the Pathways Player of the Round, Francis Manu Leilua. He was just destructive on that left edge, playing back row for the Newcastle Knights. How about this for a stat line? 2 tries, 131 metres, 2 line break assists, 6 tackle breaks. He had the passing game going. His offloads, I think he had 3 offloads in this game as well. Down that left edge, he had that passing game going. He was destructive with the ball carrying, as always. But yeah, he created a really slick try in this game at one point as well. We threw a mad 2-man cutout ball to his winger. I think it was Logan Iaki. Went through, then support play back through the inside, whatever they score. But for a back rower to have that sort of skill set, and it's something I'm seeing a lot more throughout the Pathways, is that skill set of a back rower to be able to hit that cutout ball and all that. Like I see Godney do it all the time. I see Leo Latu do it all the time. The ball playing, that added factor. Hudson Young ball plays at the NRL level. There's a few other ball playing back rowers that I'm falling a little bit short on at the moment. But, all these guys, it seems at the moment, all the elite back rowers have to have a little bit of ball playing about them. And Manu Leilua, he was at his best on that side, on that part of the game on the weekend. So he killed it for the Knights, and we'll talk about that performance a little bit later in terms of the overall Newcastle Knights performance. For Queensland Cup, Antonio Verhoeven on Q Cup debut. Now, he wasn't the best player in all of Q Cup. There was a couple of really good performances. I thought Caleb Namanu was really good. I thought Mason Teague, he was good as well. There was a couple of other really good performances throughout Q Cup as well. You'll see teams of the week and all that sort of stuff posted everywhere as well. But for Antonio Verhoeven on Q Cup debut, he was one of the best players on the field in a losing side, mind you, as well. He had a try, 2 line breaks. His carries were really impressive. 23 runs, 204 metres, 5 tackle breaks. He was just doing a lot of really good things for Wynnum Manly against South Logan in that game. I think they ended up losing 22-18, I believe was the final scoreline off the top of my head. But, or maybe 26-18. But regardless, out on the wing, first game of Q Cup, to put in numbers like that, the tries and line breaks he scored, they weren't overly impressive, but it was just his work rate off the wing and his physicality and contact, all things that I'm really impressed with. He's got a really good frame. He moves really well. He's a guy that I've highlighted for a while. The tries will come, the highlights will come, but it's really good to see his physicality and his work rate in these games. I like to see his defense come along as well. And he does make a few errors at the moment. These are all little things he's got to round out in his game. He only made 2 errors in this one on the wing, which, you can live with that. It wasn't, a bad performance, but he has had a tendency to have errors in the past. But he's a guy that he has all the attributes that you could want on a winger / centre. He plays, both of those positions really well. And I think he's a guy that Broncos fans needs to be super excited about because the ceiling on it is huge. And then another one up in Queensland, Calvin Harris-Tavita had an insane performance again for Wynnum Manly. He was versus the CQ Crappers and Cyril Connell. They won 38-6. Defensively came up with some huge moments. I was really impressed with his kicking game. He's another left footer, with a really good boot. He put up a big towering bomb that was dropped by the fullback. Dropped backwards, so the fullback managed to get up. But then the very next play, he was up, jammed in defence and pushed the Secret Cappers back. That didn't go into the in goal, but still jammed them inside their 10. and just created so much pressure that way through his defensive intensity, through his kicking game. And then on top of that, he had hands in 6 of their 7 tries. He scored one himself with a lethal left foot. He looks like he has so much ability up there, Calvin Harris-Tavita. And I'd really, really love to see... I believe he's a New Zealander. He's Chanel Harris-Tavita's younger brother. I believe he came up and played all his junior reps in New Zealand and only moved over to Queensland recently. But I'd love to see like a New South Wales versus Queensland, like a under-17s Mal Meninga Cup, Cyril Connell Team of the Year and a Howard Matthews Team of the Year. And you see the two sevens going against each other, Peyton Tadeo and Calvin Harris-Tavita. I reckon that would be a sick matchup, seeing those two go against each other. They play the game in very similar ways. They carry a lot of very similar attributes. I think Calvin Harris-Tavita is probably a little bit more agile and a bit, come up with a little bit more freakish stuff. But then Peyton Tadeo, he's a very, very strong ball runner, very well balanced. Their kicking games are very similar for mine. Defensively, they're both guns. Very impressed with what Calvin Harris-Tavita did in Cyril Connell on the weekend. And I'd love to see more of him. I'm going to, been trying to keep up with Queensland a lot more this year. And he's definitely going to be one that I'm going to be following a little bit more. In Mal Meninga Cup, no performance of the week. Didn't really get around to that, but two teams that are catching my eye up in that competition, the Tweed Seagulls and Townsville Blackhawks. Now, the Tweed Seagulls, obviously been a very competitive side the last few years. They won it while Zane Harrison was their halfback. They looked like they were going to go back-to-back last year in terms of what they did through the regular season, but then they got to finals, sort of petered out a little bit. I think they got beat in the semis or the prelim, didn't quite make it to the GF, and it was, Bears versus Dolphins in the end. Bears won it. But yeah, Tweed Seagulls, their forward pack looks unreal. Josiah Foaso, Torino Jackson up front, Jai Billish at number 9. He's a really talented player. Keep your eye out for him. Jet Flatley, who was part of the New South Wales 17 side last year, or maybe he might have been country... He was in a rep side. He was in rep sides last year. I remember seeing him there. Kalani Patu, who looks like a really talented player. I've seen him in a bit of schoolboy footy stuff as well. Fletcher O'Doherty, who was the CCC lock forward in schoolboys last year. All those guys, talented footballers. And then you got Jet City playing halfback for him, who's, by all reports, has been killing it up there. I remember seeing him in a trial for the Titans against the Knights. He killed it there. He's done some of keeping an eye out on, scores, stats, all that sort of stuff. From what's happening in Mal Meninga Cup, he stood out on the stat sheet a lot of times. I haven't gotten around to watching one of their games yet. But yeah, they're sort of catching an eye from that sort of standpoint. All those players I'm very familiar with, having watched them the last couple of years, and they look like they're going to be a really good side. They're 2-1 at the moment. Don't know who their loss was against. But yeah, they look like they're coming together nicely. They just beat the North Devils 38-4 over the weekend, which is a performance worth noting because the Devils won 70-4 the week before, albeit against the Sunshine Coast Falcons team who isn't going all that good up there. But for a team that just won 70-4 the next week to lose 38-4 just shows you the quality of that Tweed Seagulls side. And I really like their forward pack, really like their halfback, and I think that the combination of those two things, it looks like they're going to be a team that will go deep. And I'm really keen to see more performances of theirs. A lot of these guys are in the Titans, junior reps pathways, Titans contracted players and all that. I know Josiah Fire, so Jai Billish is contracted to the Titans till 2030. Torino Jackson contracted. I'm not sure if the back rowers are, but I know those middles are. And Jet City is obviously contracted to the Titans as well. That's a team to watch out for up there. And Townsville Blackhawks are the other one that have sort of caught my eye. I've actually watched a few of their games. Their halves, Taj Lateo and Tyson Walker, are a class. Front rower, Anelika Savelio, he's a guy that I'm really keen on. He's up in that Kerwin Bears system. He played the last 2 years of Schoolboy Cup up there. Very big front rower, just in that, mobile, explosive, 195 centimeters, 116 kilos, that sort of big body, explosive, mobile front rower. That seems to be coaches' favourites at the moment coming through. So they've just beat Ipswich 44-6. Ipswich have had some really big results as well themselves. They don't have a half bad side, and they're 3-0 so far this season, the Townsville Blackhawks. So ones to keep an eye on there in the Mal Meninga Cup, and two teams I'll be following pretty closely as we come towards the finals. All right, SG Ball. Let's get into it. My first talking point, and, as we did last week, and as I'm going to be doing from the time forward, not going to be talking about every single one of the games because of time constraints and, how much I've got to talk about, but I've got talking points. And, briefly talk about, the games within them and all that sort of thing. My first one, this Illawarra Steelers SG Ball side, I'd hate to be coaching them. Not from a standpoint of, they're not a team that doesn't work hard every week. They work super hard. They look like a team that's desperate to win week to week. I did speak about last week a little bit of disappointment towards their finish against the Parramatta Eels. But, they drew with the Parramatta Eels last week. They come up and versus the Magpies the week after. Magpies side who got beat 48-12 by the Parramatta Eels in round one and lose 22-18 in a really frustrating manner because the Steelers, again, against South, I thought they were the better side in that game. Against Roosters, they were fucking gritty and just could not get over the line against them. Carter Mariko hits a deflected field goal over. Heartbreaking loss. Against Parramatta, very good performance there. Get away with the draw. And then here, for 50 minutes of this game, I was watching it going, the Steelers have been to the better side, they're going to win. Steelers have been to the better side, they're going to win. Mason Andrews killing it. Marley McLaren killing it. Who else did I have? I had other guys noted down. But yeah, all these guys going really well. 49th minute, Creighton Maafo gets sin-binned. Magpies have got a little bit of a roll on. It was a little bit innocuous. I wasn't quite sure if I agreed with the sin-binning, but I guess, he delay a play or whatever off a line break. I thought it was a little bit iffy, but, he goes to the bin. Magpies score 2 tries. Christian Tapau-Moore scored the game winner, like I said before. He was the best on ground in that game by probably a distance in terms of Magpies players. I thought Mason Andrews was really good for the Steelers in this game as well. But it's a side that is 5 rounds into the competition. They have 3 games left and they haven't gotten a win yet. It's mind-boggling to me. Like, I just don't understand how a side, not just with the names that they've got on paper, right, but just in terms of the performances and visually what they're doing. They're going to be a team that's an absolute pest over the next 3 weeks. I don't know if they've got any competitive sides or sides looking to make finals over the next 3 weeks, but there could be sides looking to make the 8 against the Steelers side who's nowhere near it, that get knocked off and could get knocked off in a big way that harms their for and against, because this Steelers side is too good to currently be in the bottom 4. They've got 1 point this whole season. It comes from a draw against the Parramatta Eels, who, don't take my word for it. Pretty much everybody that has anything to do with SG Ball acknowledges that it's the Eels and the Roosters are the top 2 sides in this competition. They lost 9-8 to the Roosters, and then they had a 24-all draw to the Eels. They lost by 6 points to the Rabbitohs, who I'm going to talk about a little bit later. They've then now just had a 4-point loss to the Magpies. And the Manly game, highly disappointing. That's the one game that I look at and go, that was there for the taking. They played shocking. Apart from that, visually, name-wise, everything suggests that this Steelers side should be close to the top 8. And that's why, for me, they're a little bit of a head case, because I just don't know what's stopping them from having wins. Is it a mentality thing? Late in games, are they collapsing? Yes, they are a little bit. They were up against the Rabbitohs, got beat late. Up against Magpies, got beat late. Against the Roosters, they conceded 2 early tries. They conceded 1 early try and a penalty goal. Scored 2 tries. Didn't hit their conversions to go ahead. Then conceded a field goal late. Like, it's just, Yeah, there. Just it would be so frustrating. I feel bad for that Steelers SG ball side. They should be going so much better than they are in terms of numerically where they are on the ladder. Just yeah, it'd be so frustrating, especially coaching them. Like it's just you're right there. Deserve a win, deserve a win so desperately, and they just cannot get them. All right, on to the next. Briefly mentioned the Magpies. Christian Tupper-Moores, like I said, he was the best player on the ground. There's a couple of classy moments from Godney. He didn't quite get as involved as I thought he might, but he had a couple of classy moments there. Siatami Havea Jr., he's the other one I wanted to shout out. He played 9 in this game, but he was, in the first half, I thought he was probably their best player. Alongside Christian Tupper-Moores, they had something really good going there between those two. And he scored a try, laid one on early. I think he might have laid on the match winner to Tupper-Moores as well, with a little crash play close to the line. But yeah, regardless, those guys were good in that one. James Lanyon looks like a good player as well out in the centres. I've watched him a few times over the last couple of years. Always been really solid. He looks like the last 2 weeks he's really exploded in terms of his attacking capabilities. North Sydney Bears get their second win with clutch performance over the Raiders. Sort of talked about this in moments of the week. But, this Bears side, without Saxon Gore in this game as well, I thought the half who stepped in was really good. Let me get his name up. Out of just respect, because he deserves a shout out for the way he stepped up in this one with no Saxon Gore. That was number 6, Dylan Pryor. I thought he had a good game. Hayden Moynihan was good at halfback. I thought the two guys, and they were my 3 points and 2 points in this game. Like Joey Wesser had a really good game as well at fullback. He's been really consistent for them. Boston Cameron looks like a really talented footballer out in the centres. But the two guys who really stood out for me, especially in their comeback, were Lachlan Hales, who came off the bench he was playing a bit of 9, bit of half as well, like at times. But he came on and he really livened this game up, like his intensity around the ruck. He looked really good. He scored a try, laid 2 on, because I think he had the kick that led to the Leon Burns try as well. But yeah, he had a really energetic performance off the bench there, Lachlan Hales. And Leon Burns is the other one. He scored a try to get them ahead, and then he laid on the try to Jordan Erzegovic. Apologies if that's incorrect. He laid on that try with, Joey Wesser put him through a gap, mates line break, draws and passes. It was really slick. It was a good bit of play to put Erzegovic over. And that ended up winning the game. So those two guys really stepped up in crunch time for mine in that game. Raiders, last week I was talking about them top 8 and they should win certain games. And they've just come out and been beat by the North Sydney Bears, who was probably, if you're looking at their run home, probably one of their easier games on paper on the run home. So yeah, they're now 2-3 and need to probably win. So they need to beat the Roosters, the Knights, and the Sharks on the run home now, which is going to be a tough ask for that team. But we'll move on to the Rabbitohs. I feel like each week I'm praising the Rabbitohs system at the moment. Their pathway system have gone through such a big rebuild at the moment. It's been unreal to watch because, when I was sort of coming through pathway age a few years ago, my mates playing in the pathways and all that, the Rabbitohs were sort of like a bit of a joke side. You go up and you just pump them, and that's how it was. You'd rock up and the Rabbitohs always bottom 3, in the same vein as sort of like what the North Sydney Bears were. Victoria Thunderbolts, it's a throwback for you. Just perennially in the bottom 4. They had a couple of okay teams. They had some good players coming through, like Tyrone Munro's team was solid. I don't think they made finals, so I think they were around that 9 to 10 range. But yeah, they've had a lot of really poor sides over the years that I've been watching the Pathways. Their last 2 to 3 years, more so I'd probably say 2 years, been really good. Made the finals in both comps. They're going to make the finals again in both comps. And this SG Ball side is legit. I talked about them as a smoky preseason. They're now 5-0, dominating, contenders. Manly Seagulls are a contender, and Rabbitohs just absolutely smacked them, 38 points to 6. I'm gonna just a direct message to Origin under 19 selectors. Cody Hill isn't your number 9. Don't know what we're looking at. He has to be the number 9. Ashton Large, who he came up against in this game, will be the 14. That's how I think you run. I think Cody Hill, the body of work that he's put into SG Ball this season has been unreal. The year before, he was awesome, made City under 18s, did a lot of really good things. He sort of added a couple of really good strings to his bow in terms of his attack. Really leveled up from the Howard Matthews season before. And then, this year he's gone to another level again. His deception around the ruck is unbelievable. And I always say it with dummy halves is there's 2 things that make dummy halves good. They give good service, to their front rowers, to their halves, to the fullbacks, whoever needs the ball, they give good service. They put it where that player wants it. So front rowers wants the ball out in front to be able to run onto it full steam. The halves want it, out in front or in a certain position so that they can set up their plays, whatever. They give good service. He does that. He got great service, always has. Defensively, he's always been a gun dummy half. That's the second thing. Defensively, make your tackles, win your tackles. That makes you a good dummy half. He's added, a running game over the last 2 years. That has added that point of difference in attack. And then he's also added this deception around the ruck, which maybe I hadn't noticed it the last few years as much. Maybe he wasn't doing it as much, or maybe he always had it, but I hadn't been noticing it. But around the ruck, he just has this way of, getting defenders to stand still because they don't really know what he's doing. He had a try assist against the Bulldogs a couple of weeks ago where he sort of like twisted his body and then sort of flicked a pass back the other way, and the A defender was just sort of stuck in the mud a little bit wide, and then he had a front rower crashing back straight through. Oh no, it was Lachlan Moses crashing straight back through that gap that the A defender just didn't really tie in enough to cover that. And little things like that. In this game, really deceptive around the ruck, goes one way, markers straighten up, the markers are stuck there because they just don't know what he's going to do, and then bang, back the other way, players back in behind the ruck. I spoke about it with him and Phil Lavakiaho, who have built one of the best hooker and front row combinations in the competition thus far, just from, Cody Hill being able to pause the markers or pause the A and B defender and give his runners enough time to get in behind. And that's, the service thing, just an added sort of bit of depth to that. But yeah, I think Cody Hill, Origin number 9, lock that in. I think if he's not the New South Wales number 9, I don't know who. Ashton Large, maybe he's a year up. I think for mine, he's got to be the 14, with Cody Hill being the 9, and that's what I'd run with. Because Ashton Large can come off the bench, his speed, his running game, he can light the game up in 20 minutes. Whereas I think Cody Hill, defensively, he's going to get through so much work for you around the ruck. He's going to do so much good stuff in terms of hitting his halves where they want it, hitting the forwards where they want it. He's going to be able to create points. He's just added so many strings to his bow. He's been the best number 9 in SG Ball competition so far this year. SG, but I think this is the last point. Yeah, last point. Central Coast Roosters, Newcastle Knights. Newcastle Knights won 26-18. But what you notice with the Central Coast games, they're getting closer and closer and closer. This was a good team. They versus Newcastle Knights. And I thought they were really good, the Central Coast Roosters. Rave Tulevu, he was good. Charles Barnes, good as always, through the middle. Corbin Devaney, he was everywhere for them at fullback. He just seemed to be popping up both sides of the ball. Just so many effort plays. Scored a try, made a line break and set one on. He was really good, Corbin Devaney, in this game. Defensively, come up with a few huge stops. Their six, Jonathan Mansour, very hot and cold, had a couple of errors in this game, but he just tried his heart out all game. And I really respected his performance as well. I think he probably had 2 or 3 line breaks, created a lot of opportunities for this side. He was there in support play for a try that would have put them over, but then he put the ball down. Just a couple of those sort of errors might have been the difference in the game, and they'd be really frustrating to look at, but I just think his effort and the amount of times that he just created something for the Central Coast Roosters, he looked very dangerous for them in this game. They're on the improve massively. So the Central Coast Roosters, do they get a win this year? Let's have a look at the draw. Because, the way they performed against the Knights, they got the Steelers next game in round 7. They got the bye this week. They got the Steelers in round 7. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Eels. See, Central Coast Roosters and Steelers. Steelers deserve a win desperately. Central Coast Roosters, there's 2 sides without a win, and it could end up being a really good matchup in terms of the quality of the game, just the way that the Central Coast Roosters are tracking, and then what the Steelers have done so far this season, despite not getting that win. Then they have the Eels, that's a tough break, and then they have the Seagulls. It's a tough old finish. Do they deserve a win? Not to the same extent that the Steelers do. But, they're trending in the right direction, and I think they've got a couple of good footballers there to keep an eye out for. Just from the Knights' point of view, Chase Butler was really good again. His game management, his kicking game, all those sorts of things really good. He creates a lot of space for his outside backs. And Toby Winter, he's another one, Origin on 19 centre spot. I think you've got to lock that in. He's been playing centre the last 2 weeks. I don't agree with him playing centre. In this Newcastle Knights side, I just think, obviously centre probably will be his position moving forward, but I just think you build confidence into him playing, the position that he's always played. It's SG ball at the moment. You can start moving him to centres as he moves up through the grades, to New South Wales Cup and whatnot. But yeah, I guess sort of streamlining him now and putting him in that position that is probably the long-term goal. I guess it makes sense. He had a shocker against the Roosters last week, which is really disappointing when he was initially moved out to centre in that game. But yeah, he was really good in this one, though, against the Central Coast Roosters. Every single time he touched the ball, he just looked very dangerous. And he's a guy I've obviously had big raps on for a while. Inside the red zone, he's probably one of the best players in the SG ball competition at creating points. Just that, go to the line, that flick pass that he's got, his ability to beat you one-on-one, the ability to skip to your outside shoulder and just create that little bit of space that you need. All those things, it's just if he gets the ball inside the red zone, it's sirens going off for the opposition defence. And he's going to be a guy that I imagine we'll see in Sky Blue come July. Howard Matthews, the Bulldogs, which I spoke about a little bit before, very scrappy game against the Warriors. It was a little bit poor, to be honest. I think both sides had completion rates less than 65%. But yeah, they were good in this one, the Bulldogs. I think their halves are very good. Tyler Munn and Ezekiel Stanley-Linivale. Both got really good running games. Tyler Munn's a little bit more of that silky, long cutout ball, slick passing game sort of guy, whereas Ezekiel's probably more of that running half with a good boot on him. And yeah, they've done some really good things so far this year. And that clutch performance, Riley Schaefer was really good the whole game. And then he comes up with that big moment late. Frankie Cotto came off the bench, and with about 15 minutes to go, he got subbed back on and ended up scoring the go-ahead try. Just a really good win for the Bulldogs. Despite the completion rates, they need to fix that. As to the Warriors, it was a hot, humid day out there, based on what the commentary was saying anyway. And the SG ball game was sort of equally as scrappy as well, so I'm willing to forgive that. Roosters versus Sharks. This game ended up 32-26. The Sharks clawed their way back from a bad position, where the Roosters were up pretty big in the second half at some stage there. Sharks, Eparame Nemea, good play to watch there through the middle. I think he's going to be a pretty good front rower for the Sharks coming through the grades. I've talked about their back rowers. Talked about some of the guys in that spine in Jaden Best, Cole Cooper. Jaden Best didn't play in this game. Nate Horsey started and actually was pretty good. But it was the Roosters who get the W. Their halves are good. I spoke about Charlie Webb. I wanted to highlight Caleb Zara in this game. He made 34 tackles, had a really good work rate in defence. At number 9, he scored a really classy try. He probably should have had a second. I thought he got that ball down from close range. He came up with 2 try savers, knocking the ball out close to the line. Just had a lot of really good effort plays. He's a guy that I've liked for a while. When he was at Parramatta playing 16s Dev, I'd watched a few of his games there, and those same effort areas are things that have translated to Howard Matthews for him. He's the captain of this side now. He's just doing some really good things, and his running game's obviously very threatening, but it's those things on the defensive side of the ball that really impressed me in this game. He was my 2 points. Charlie Webb was obviously my 3 points, Caleb Zara got 2 points in this game, just with the quality of his work on the defensive side of the ball. Really good performance there. Cooper Tesoriero, very good performance again out in the back row. I really like both of these back rowers, Tesoriero and Riley Smart. They're 2 guys that we need to follow as they come through the SG ball and all those pathways. Solid win for the Roosters. I just need to see them put it together for a full 60 minutes before I can declare them a premiership threat. They're obviously going to be a team that's there and come finals time. But I've probably seen a little bit more from the likes of your Panthers and your Knights and that so far this year. So that's going to be a very good matchup this weekend. While I'm on that topic, Panthers versus Knights is this weekend, and Howard Matthews. That's the top 2 teams. They're both undefeated. Somebody's going to have a 1 next to their record that has been flawless so far this year. That's going to be the game of the round by far in Howard Matthews. Next one, Magpies scoring 22 unanswered against the Steelers, and they had Monson Hopewade sent off. They were down 20 points to 0 early in this game, 18 minutes in. They have a player sent off. Isaac Isdale, Terry Golding Lions, absolutely blitzed them. I think Isaac Isdale, I was looking at the player stats on New South Wales Rugby League. I think he led in every single category except tackles. I think he had 2 line breaks, 150 odd meters, whatever. Had a hand in a couple of tries. He looks a really class player. Terry Golden Lions had a really good intercept. He also laid on a try himself. He's been really silky so far this season for the Western Suburbs Magpies. It's just I was so shocked. I rewatched this game after. I had no clue about the context of the game. I just seen Steelers 130-22, and I went, that sounds about right. Magpies, good footy side. Steelers probably just that slight level above, but very disappointed in the Steelers game here, where they go up 20-0. They're absolutely dominating. The other side loses a man. That's a game where you go, bang, 50-0. That's realistically what the result should have been. No matter how brave the Magpies could have been, no matter how good they could have played, no matter what Isaac Isdale, Terry Golden Lions, Kingston Finau, whatever these gun players did for the Magpies does not excuse the fact that a team with a man down just scored 22 unanswered points and got to the lead. They led 22-20. Some very ordinary decision-making from some key players in this Steelers side. It was a little bit of a disappointing game from a Steelers perspective. My player of the match, though, was Apia Monet, who had the game of his life, from what I've seen so far. I think he had about 170 meters. That wasn't the super impressive part. It was destructive every single time he grabbed the ball, bumping off tackles. I think he scored a try, might have had an offload that led to another one. He's just super destructive on the offensive side of the ball. defense, he was shotting blokes. He was doing a lot of really good things when he was off the field or when a lot of those unanswered points were scored. Let me just double check his times because he did go off the field and come back on because he was playing front row in this game. Let me check the times that he came off and on. Bear with me. Yeah, there's a try there in the 44th minute. Did he even come off? I'd swear he did. Or maybe I just didn't notice him through the middle part because it was all sort of... No, he came off in the 19th. So he came off in the 19th minute, 20-0. Magpies then score. Bang, 1 try, 2 tries, 3 tries, 4 tries, and then he comes back on in the 43rd, and then the Steelers scored 2 more tries. So he's won this game, Appiamone, 30-0 in 30 minutes. He's at a plus 30 on the box score, while the rest of the team minus 22 when he was off. Ridiculous, his impact on this game. But yeah, he had a really good game there, Appiamone, and he was my clear pick in the front row for my team of the week. And then the last one, Storm get their first win at Harold Matthews. Briefly talk about this game. It was a little bit sloppy. 2 teams that, probably aren't going to be there come finals time. That's not a hot take. Hunter Stokey, though, he was really good in this game. He's a guy that we need to follow in this Storm side. I think Harrison Plummer looks really reliable there in the front row as well. I think he looks like a really solid middle forward for them. He's, big body, good work rate, all those sorts of things. So, 2 guys to follow there for the Storm. From a Balmain Tigers point of view, it's just it is what it is sort of game. But from their point of view, James Kerr scored a double. He was good. Who was my 2 points? Charlie Brewer's my 2 points. I thought he was good. The Tigers number 7, particularly in that first half. That was weird as did not touch a thing. Light, phone, everything just went. So if you're watching on YouTube, you would see the camera's probably changed angle. Hopefully that's not too bad. It looks like it's a little bit high, but she'll be right. Okay, let's get into the New South Wales Cup. And I'm going to breeze through these. I'm just going to briefly talk about each of these games. Who stood out, what talking points coming out of it. First game, Eels dominate the Storm. I watched this live, posted on my Instagram and all that sort of stuff. Appa Twiddle and Lorenzo Talatena are the clear 2 talking points out of this performance. Lorenzo Talatena, he's going to be special. Defensively, unreal for his size. I know on the stat sheet it reads 10 tackles, 4 missed. Bugger that off. Came up with 2 or 3 mad try savers. He looked like he got beat on a couple of occasions. Bootlace tackles. When, they were stretched for numbers out on his side. Just came up with a couple of really, really key plays on that side of the ball. Then he's had 2 try assists as well on top of that. His running game looked good. Him and Josiah Funa-Utah formed a really good combination on that left edge, really damaged the Storm. And then, Appa Twiddle, they looked like they'd been playing together for years, and this was Appa Twiddle's first game at 7. They had a really slick play where Lorenzo started on the left side of the ruck, sprinted over to the right side as Appa Twiddle's digging into the line, bang out the back, Storm back rower jams in, tip on, try to Will Latu. Those 2 incredible performance from them. Luca Moretti I thought was really good up front. He's just too good at that level. He needs to be playing first grade. Luca Moretti. Angus Hinchey was really good for the Storm there as well. He's worth a shout. He was their best player on the puck by a distance. Next one was the Roosters putting 40 on the Warriors in New Zealand. This was a game that AJ Lucantonio from League Scene Pod, he covered this game. Friday, 3:15 p.m, still at work. On my way home, sort of in the second half of this game, so I didn't really get to watch it live. I've since watched it back briefly. Didn't watch the full game back, but I have watched most of this game. I thought Hayden Barton and Celestia Fiketti killed it in the back row there. Halves and Reece Foley and Lachlan Dooner were really good. When AJ covered it, he sent through 3 points to Reece Foley. He was raving about his performance. He was really good. Couple of really nice balls thrown. Just a really good halfbacks game. Lachlan Dooner scored a try. Had a really good performance backing him up in the 6 jersey. And, Hayden Barton had 3 line breaks in this game. He looked destructive whenever he touched the ball. Celestia Fiketti, he got 1 point in this game. Just, he was another one that had 3 line breaks, damaging whenever he touched the ball. He had about 190 metres. Just a really good all-round performance from all of those guys. And then the benches as well killed it. I thought Jackson Rame off the bench was good. And there was other ones as well. Let me get that back up while I'm here. Off the bench as well. Jackson Allen was good. And, Makatoa and Mageli as well were solid in their minutes. We'll move on to the Panthers. They scraped through against the Bears. They won 20-16. Jack Cole, best on ground. Tom Ale was very good through the middle as well in this game. Another one that AJ covered, with League Team Pod. He did the 3-2-1s for this game as well. He gave Jack Cole 3, Jake Toby 2, and Tom Ale 1. The Dragons, this was a game that I covered. So watched it full detail, watched the full game. Ryan Hutchinson and Jacob Halengahu are dogs. I love those two as footballers. Like, they're just... Halengahu, everybody knows who he is. Everybody knows how good he can be. In the back row, he scored the game-winning try. Statistically, I think he had only 10 runs for 110 meters, but he looked like he'd done so much more than that in attack, and he just looked damaging whenever he got it. His post-contact meters were very high. He just seemed like he was pushing defenders back whenever he carried the ball. Defensively, very good, those two. He dominated a couple of tackles, just straight up bullying the ball carriers, and then Ryan Hutchinson through the middle, come off the bench, about 50 minutes I think he played. I think he had about 39 tackles and 160-odd run meters, just a classic workhorse game. Just got through so much just shit work. Defensively, just was everywhere, just chasing the ball, making tackles. He had a line break, scooping up a loose ball. Just those little extra effort areas. I think he's been really good at that. He's got that added little bit of creativity with a bit of ball playing that he can do. He looks like a really solid player. I'd love to see him make a first grade debut because I think he's so underrated, Ryan Hutchinson. Tyrell Sloan did a lot of little things really good. His carrying out of the backfield was good. Defensively, come up with a few nice plays. He covered the ball off really nicely off the kicks. Not the unbelievable attacking game that you expect from Tyrell Sloan, but I was sort of watching this game waiting for him to just absolutely carve up the Bulldogs' defense. That didn't really happen, but he did a lot of really good little things there. Jonathan Sewer for the Bulldogs, he was really good in a losing effort, scored 2 tries, came up with a really crucial intercept play, and went the journey, went for huge meters. I think he ran about 230 meters, just got through a lot of work. His yardage carries have always been really good, and he came up with a lot of really good plays there. Manly, they scraped through against the Raiders, another game that I covered. Just for my 3-2-1s there, I went Jacob Halengahu 3, Ryan Hutchinson 2, and Jonathan Sewer 1. Manly, they scraped through against the Raiders. I thought Owen Paddy was the Raiders' best by far. He had a couple of 40-20 attempts. One of them came off. Very classy around the ruck. Running game, scored a try. Got through a heap of work with his defense. I think he had about 40-odd tackles in this one. He was Raiders' best on ground by far. For Manly, let me get up this game. I kind of forgot who I gave my 3-2-1s to. For Manly, Zach Docker-Clay, he was my 3 points. He was really good at halfback in this one. I think he scored a try or set one up. Yeah, he set one up he had a good run, line break and tipped on. I think he had all up 3 try assists in this game. He just looked like he was in everything good they were doing, or he was at least starting it. 3 try assists. Yeah, 3 try assists, 1 line break assist. Just a good game there from Zach Docker-Clay overall. I haven't looked at the stats for this game, so apologies. But yeah, going back through that. And my 1 point in this game was Paul Bryan through the middle. I thought he was really good. Tough carries, got through his work defensively. Just an all-round pretty good game. Let me get up his stats, actually. And he scored a try early on as well. Let me get up his stats while I'm here. 12 runs for 115 metres. Sounds about right. 43 post-contact. A line break for the try. Obviously, 3 tackle breaks. And he had 19 tackles for only 1 missed. And 0 errors. Just an all-round really good game from Paul Bryan through the middle there. A guy that I thought was good, his energy was really up. He came up with a couple of really nice try savers. Was Chevy Stewart out in the centres. He had a couple of bad errors. Like, he had 2 errors on the stat sheet, but they were both pretty poor. But his energy was really good. I liked his performance there. Kobe Black, he was a bit hit and miss at time. He came up with a couple of mistakes, but he did have 2 classy try assists as well. His kicking game was good. I think he did put one out on the full, but apart from that, he had some really nice kicks that troubled the Manly back 5. He did miss a conversion on the siren that would have leveled this game up. I might not have been on the siren. It might have been about a minute ago. Yeah, it was on the siren, so 79.50 it says there. So, he did miss that opportunity, but he set up that try with a really nice cutout ball to Kane Anderson, so you can forgive him for that. But yeah, we'll move on to the Knights dominating South. This was a game that I did watch in full because I had to see Francis Manolé-Lewis' performance before giving it the Pathways Player of the Round, but this was AJ's game. He gave Francis Manolé-Lewis the 3 points. Obviously, Elijah Le'Moana 2 points, and Matt Arthur got 1 point in this game. Knights just dominated them. The edges were so lethal in this game. Manolé-Lewis, he just came up with, like I said, when I was talking about players of the week or the performances of the round, whatever, that ball playing that he had on that edge was really good. Kyle McCarthy, he looked really good in the centres. He's been a little bit hit and miss in NRL so far this year, but not this year, so far in his career. But in New South Wales Cup, he's a very high standard of centre. Wilson DeCourcy was good. Logan Aoaki was good out in that left wing. He was sort of those 3 guys, McCarthy, Aoaki, and Manolé-Lewis, they all sort of just benefited off each other having really good games. And Matt Arthur, he was at his sort of scheming best around the ruck. He had a couple of line breaks, maybe only one, but he had a couple of really nice runs. Let me get up his stats so that I can sort of speak sort of more in detail about it or give more sort of evidence to what I'm saying. He led the tackle count with 32 as well. I probably didn't notice that as much, but yeah, 9 runs for 86. He had a couple of really good runs, had a line break, had a try assist as well. Just had some really nice moments there. He had that sort of trademark kick in behind that led to a try there as well. Really good performances. Elijah Le'Moana, let me get his stats up because he would have absolutely filled the stat sheet up. Because he was really good through the middle there as well at lock. He had 2 tries, obviously, 11 runs for 82. I thought he had more meters than that. 2 line breaks, a try assist. And on the defensive side of the ball, how much work did he get through? 25, 1 miss. So, a good performance there from Celeste Le'Moana. That's it for New South Wales Cup. NRL debuts, rookies, talked about. I think it's only Makasini making his debut this week. A lot of loyalty shown by the coaches in terms of their teamless selections. But yeah, don't need to talk about Makasini too much. Everybody knows he's a gun. Cooper Clark, his debut was unreal. better than probably even I expected. I've been, talking about Cooper Clark for a while. I gave him a good rap in the preview podcast. He was probably one of the main ones I talked about. In the Rookies podcast, he was my selection for the Storm Rookie of the Year, and that's aged like a fine wine because I don't think many people were talking about him. I think Guru spoke a little bit about him, but apart from that, wasn't really all that hyped up, and he's come in and killed it. And I think he's going to get more and more minutes as the season goes on. Cooper Bye, he needs minutes. What's he going to do in 20 minutes of footy? Either if you want to protect him or want to ease him in, you can give him big minutes in Q Cup, or you can at least give him 30 to 40. I think he only played 20 minutes in this game, and, he played solid, but he's come onto the field with, 20, 30 minutes left to go in the 50th minute when the Titans are already down massive. It's just not... I don't know. He's their best 13 option. He's better than Chris Randall. I'm happy to go out and say that. Give the kid some minutes. I'm happy with the easing in and all that sort of stuff, but at least get him, 40 through the middle part of the game. If you're going to give him 30, happy with that. Middle part of the game, not just at the end when the game's done. Give him a chance to impact. Give him a chance to come onto the field, get his offloads away, get through his work, because that's his main thing, right? He's going to get through a shitload of work. He's a big body forward, mobile. He's destructive. He can get an offload away, and he's both sides of the ball. He's going to put himself into the game as much as he possibly can, and he comes up with a lot of line breaks doing so as well. So, yeah, he's a guy that needs far more minutes. Ethan Sanders, that was unreal from him. I've always sort of wrapped him up. He's been a guy coming through the SG ball, New South Wales under 19s, genuine halfback. Always had that mould. Defensively, he was good through his juniors, through, even going back to playing for Hills Bulls. I remember watching him play there, and there was a year that he just added really good defensive game where he was snapping blokes in half, driving and back, dominating tackles. His defense really impressed me in this game. He scored a really slick try. Very underrated for how good it was in terms of his deception. He was sort of looking out and just sold the dream to the Manly defenders and went straight through the middle. You don't see halves go through that like that very often, especially when I think it was Gerbo defending him, who's a really good defender. And obviously the field goal was just clutch as. And that's something that I think in New South Wales Cup that he's developed over time, because when he first came in New South Wales Cup for the Parramatta Eels, missed a kick from pretty much right in front to tie the game against the Bulldogs. I think that was his first or second ever career start in New South Wales Cup. He's had a couple of games where he hasn't quite gotten that right. He's played a lot of grand finals where he hasn't won. SG Ball came up with the win there, and was good in that game. But yeah, that's something that time in New South Wales Cup has developed him into that player. And yeah, he's going to be good for the Raiders this year. He's the system halfback that they need for Ethan Strange. They complement each other perfectly. I think Ethan Strange was a little bit quiet in this game, but he'll play good footy this year. You already know he's made kangaroo tours and all that sort of stuff, so you don't need to convince anyone of that. Joey Walsh needs to start. Not breaking in new ground there as well. I put that in my notes. I kind of regret putting that in my notes because there's not much more to talk about from that perspective. Other talking points. Last week, if you were listening to the podcast, I put you on to a Super League player by the name of Kai Taylor-Ray. He just won their player of the month, so I'm not talking shit. This is a 20-year-old fullback who I watched his full game again the other day against York, a team that's 2-0. They beat Hull KR first game, and he was really good in that game as well. He came up with a really nice play. Under the high ball, I think he's still a little bit shaky. The game before, Sam Burgess was wrapping him under the high ball and how much he'd improved on that, but he was a little bit shaky against York, as the voice just goes there. But yeah, he's just so dangerous with the ball in hand. He's a live wire. He's quick as. He's got a good little passing game. I think he scored another try on the weekend as well. So yeah, he just won the player of the month. very good footballer, Kai Taylor-Ray. He's a guy that wouldn't surprise me if he does eventually make the trip over to these shores because he's good enough to do so. Then again, you see these guys that are good enough to do so that are just staying in the Super League. And regardless of what he does, he's a player to watch for the future. I think he'll be an England international. Could be an England international as soon as the World Cup. 2027 World Cup. Watch out for him, Kai Taylor-Ray. Questions. I've got 3 here that I've picked out from a very lackluster bunch. If you're listening to the podcast, make sure you go send in your questions on my Instagram story. But my first question that I got was, do you think Lorenzo will be the Eels 5'8" next year? 100% he will be. If he's not, I'll be blowing up as an Eels fan. He's just got that it factor as a half. And even when I talk about that it factor, obviously I'm talking about his SG Ball campaign last year into his New South Wales Cup campaign, into what he's done in New South Wales Cup this year so far. Both sides of the ball, he's just been doing so much good stuff with the footy, without the footy, efforts and all those sorts of things are very high quality. But then, early on in his career, first year of SG Ball, before he had that massive breakout year where he won Player of the Year, I was raving on about him there against the Magpies. He had a game where they'd come from behind. They needed to win this game to make finals. He came up with the match-winning play. Him and Dylan Bredel linked up, and then he snapped Jordan Miller in half, who's 131 kilos. He snapped him in half, forced an error. These things that I've seen from Lorenzo coming throughout the grades, I'm so excited about him as an Eels fan. I've gotten it wrong before, but there's a lot of guys who I've looked at and gone, they're okay. They're good. They're killing it in the pathways. Don't know how they're going to go in first grade. They're killing it here. Follow them. This guy, I think he's going to be a bona fide NRL star. I think he's just got it. Just the things that he's done over however many years that I've been watching him play footy, both sides of the ball, his effort areas, all these things. 100% he starts in the 5'8" jersey next year. I wouldn't be surprised if he debuts this year. The wider NRL fan base has seen it through his work in the trials. But I think, the guys that don't tune into the trials, or the fans that don't tune into the trials, they're going to really get to know Lorenzo Talatena over the next few years. That's something that I'm very confident on. What went on with Manly last week, and why is it Metcalf and Yeats in the 17. Metcalf isn't in the 17 because he's torn his ACL. I mentioned that last week. What went on with them? Just a poor game against a quality opposition. I haven't sort of broken it down much further than that. They didn't play well. South played really well. South are a top 4, top 3 team, potentially top 2 team. It is what it is. They didn't play well. They don't have their star half back. It is what it is. But yeah, I'm not sure why Jackson Yeats isn't in the side anymore. Whether he's been dropped or whether he's been injured, whether he's been suspended, whatever. Not updated on it. And then last one, which NRL clubs have the strongest overall pathways? I don't want to be biased, and I've been asked this question a few times recently, and I've sort of gone to Newcastle Knights have really strong junior base. I'm not sure their pathways are the greatest because they're not filtering that through into the first grade system. Western Suburbs Magpies, similar sort of thing, but they actually are filtering their pathways products into first grade, and they're doing a really good job of that. But they're not seeing success at Howard Matthews SG Ball level. But you don't need to see success like that. Talent filtering into first grade is what it's about. That's I've said that. With the Western Suburbs Magpies, I think they've been one of the best feeder clubs in the country so far this year. Broncos have, very strong pathways. They're up there, Broncos, Western Suburbs Magpies, Knights, they're my immediate sort of answers. I think Rabbitohs have been really good the last 2 years, but they're probably not quite there yet. But the one that, if you look at, junior base, pathway success, filtering it through to the top grade. I think recently Parramatta have been, A+ in this regard. The Penrith Panthers have been that. I think they've sort of fallen off in terms of pathway success, but they're still filtering guys through to the top grade. They did just make the Jersey Flegg Grand Final last year as well, so don't discount the Panthers. But yeah, those teams that I mentioned, they're probably the top ones that come to mind. And there's different factors that come into it when you ask me who has the strongest overall pathways. If I was saying purely pathway success, you probably have to say Parramatta based on last year. If you're saying filtering plays into the first grade or the amount of talent they've got, West Coast Magpies, Broncos. If you're saying, who's been the best for the last 5 years, it's Panthers. They've all got their own little arguments there, but yeah, and there's a lot of factors of who is really, truly the best pathway. But yeah, that's sort of how I'd answer that question. And that's it. Make sure you go follow over my Instagram. Tune in next week. So much stuff going on at the moment. Hard to keep on top of, to be completely honest. The amount of footy I've been watching is ridiculous. But yeah, we'll see you all next week.